morning to all. Good morning to all those who joined through online. So friends, in last class we were discussing about introduction to environment and ecology. Okay, so basically to recap what we have studied in last class. So in simple manner to say, so environment basically refers to the surroundings in which an organism lives. So that is environment. So what do you call the term like the place where an organism lives? What do you call it? It is habitat. It is nothing but habitat. So that's habitat. And then environment is basically composed of various components. So there we have biotic components and we have abiotic components. So abiotic components are also called as abiotic, non-living components. Okay, so biotic components are called as living components likewise. So plants, animals and microorganisms, they are biotic components, and light, pressure, temperature, soil, so all of these things are abiotic components. Okay, so that is components. So here in environment we can see systematic relationships between different individuals amongst themselves as well as with their environment. So what do you call the term this systematic and scientific study of the relationship among the individuals and with their environment? It is ecology. So how many types or how many branches of ecology are there? Two branches. What are they? Art ecology and synecology. Art ecology, synecology. These are the two branches. So in art ecology we will try to study the about individual species or individual or a particular species. Whereas in synecology we will try to talk about the relationship or interactions between two different species or with their environment. So that is ecology, art ecology and synecology. Okay, so then we were trying to discuss about the responses of various organisms to the environment. So there we were discussing about the responses of plants to the abiotic components. So do you remember phototropism? Okay, so do you remember photonasty? So what do you call the response to touch? Response to touch. Good, it is thigmonasty. So what do you call the response to temperature? Yes, response to the length of the day. Yes, it is photoperiodism. So there we can see the growth and development of the plant according to the length of the day. There would be short day plants and there would be long day plants. So we have examples also. So rice is a short day plant, whereas spinach is a long day plant. So that's how we can have different types. So there we have also saw some of the examples. So try to recollect those examples. Okay, so in today's class, yes. With reference to what? Axialis triangularis? See, positive or negative we have only in photoperiodism. We had photoperiodism. Sorry, in phototropism we had a positive or negative. So there we had the directional response of the plant. So in that case we had positive and negative. In others we don't have the either positive or negative. I understood. I understood your photonasty and response to light and response when it comes to response during night time. It is also it is also one way. It is also one way, but here we are reference point is this thing. Reference point. Darkness is the reference point here. Night times. Like for example, if we are saying that when we go to animals, we will say diurnal animals and nocturnal animals. So those who are active during the day means they are inactive during the night. So obviously opposite would be there. But yes, we are taking reference point. The reference point varies here. Like this. Okay, so that is with respect to responses of the plants towards the abiotic factors. So then we have to discuss about responses of animals to the environment. So there we had some responses. What are the various responses we have? One is regulation. Next one is conformation. Next one is migration. Then suspension. Then diapause. So these are 5 different types of general responses. Okay, so let's try to understand general responses and then let's move on to specific responses. Specific would be different, like for example, response to the light, response to the temperature, response to the day, night. So that is different aspects. So first let's try to discuss the general responses. So first one is nothing but the regulation. So regulation. So when we basically talk about the word regulation, regulation is nothing but in simple manner to say, it is a mechanism adapted by the organisms to regulate their body and temperature aspects. So have you heard of some of the organisms like ectotherms and endotherms? So what do you call those organisms which maintains constant body temperature? They are endotherms. Endotherms are nothing but those organisms which maintain constant body temperature irrespective of the temperature of the outside. Endotherms. So they are also known by other name. What is the other name for this? They are known as warm-blooded animals. So which animals are called as warm-blooded animals? So we have various animals, we have various living organisms like fishes, amphibians, reptiles, birds and mammals. Okay, before to this we have invertebrates. Okay, so we have invertebrates. So from invertebrates to fishes, amphibians and reptiles. So all of them are, they are cold-blooded. Cold-blooded means they are ectothermic. Their body temperature is determined by the external conditions. So that is ectothermic animals are cold-blooded organisms likewise. So there are some organisms which maintains constant body temperature irrespective of the external temperature or outside environmental conditions. They are nothing but endotherms or warm-blooded animals, and example organisms, examples are like birds and mammals. So they are likewise. So here what they will do, they will maintain constant conditions in their body. So that is one thing. So here when we talk about human beings, so what about human beings? Can we call human beings as, yes, human beings are warm-blooded because will come under mammals. So we'll come under mammalian class. So likewise, so we can maintain constant body conditions. So that is nothing but this mechanism of adapting is nothing but regulation. Okay, and here some organisms cannot maintain constant body temperature, constant body conditions. Rather, their body conditions would be dependent upon the external environment. So their body conditions will vary according to changes in the environment. For example, temperature of the environment rises, their body temperature also rises. For example, temperature drops, their body temperature also drops. So such kind of mechanism where an organism cannot maintain constant body conditions. So that refers to conformation. Conformation means these organisms are called as conformers because their body conditions are getting confirmed according to external temperature, external conditions. Are you able to follow that? So here we can have examples like ectotherms. Try to learn by the word itself. Endo means internal, ecto means outside. So therm means temperature. So their body condition is maintained by internal mechanism. Their body temperature is maintained by external conditions. So regulated by external conditions. Likewise. So example, it would be like all cold-blooded organisms or cold-blooded animals. They'll come under the conformer category. Okay, so that is one thing. And some organisms, what they will do under unfavorable conditions, they will move from one place to another place in search of favorable conditions. Think during winter time period. During winters, some of the birds from Siberia, they will migrate to this southern hemisphere, let's say to India. Have you heard of like Siberian crane? So Siberian crane will migrate from polars, the Siberia to Rajasthan, Kevladev National Park in Rajasthan. So this is one type of response of the animals, like say movement of the animals in search of the favorable conditions from one place to another place. That is, that process, that mechanism is known as migration. Okay, so their organisms will move from one place to another place in search of the favorable conditions. This is another response. Okay, then next one we have is suspension. Suspension. Suspension means this is another type of response where organisms will show to the conditions. Where, for example, some organisms like, let's say, bacteria will go to a dormant stage and it produces spores, bacterial spores, so that temporarily they will suspend their metabolic activities. Their metabolic activities would be suspended, and they will have a kind of temporary suspension in their activities. So that process is known as, this is suspension. So you can say like bacteria will go to a dormant stage. So dormant stage, that dormant stage is known as spores. It produces spores and it remains stagnant during that period. So that is suspension. And there is another mechanism or another response called diapause. So diapause means temporarily organisms will pause their metabolic activities in order to save their energy due to external conditions. Think about in winter, think about in summer. There are some things like we have hibernation and estivation, such kind of things. So some organisms will temporarily pause their metabolic activities so that they can save the energy and they can save themselves from the external harsh situations. Okay, so such things are nothing but, such mechanism is nothing but diapause mechanism. Okay, so these are the general responses. Okay, simply you learn them, but when we go to specific, we will learn in detail with examples. For example, migration is one response to the temperature. We'll learn in detail and we will learn various examples. Like when we go to other things like these things also, like hibernation, estivation, we'll try to learn more and more about them, okay, later on. So there first you mentioned responses of organisms, responses of animals to abiotic factors. Responses of animals to abiotic factors. Okay, so and that you mentioned there are various ways in which an animal respond to various abiotic factors, namely regulation, conformation, migration, regulation, conformation, migration, suspension, and diapause. Suspension and diapause. Okay, so these are various responses. So next point you mentioned regulation. Next point you mentioned about regulation as small subheading, regulation. Keep a colon and write that. It is a mechanism used by the organisms to maintain constant conditions of their body. Okay, so there you mention, for example, all the endotherms Endotherms are warm-blooded animals. Endotherms are warm-blooded animals. Maintain constant body temperature. Maintain constant body temperature through the process of through the process of through the process of homeostasis. Through the process of homeostasis. Okay, through the process of homeostasis. Okay, so maintaining constant body temperature, that is nothing but homeostasis. Okay, so that is one thing. So that is one example. So then next one, second one you mentioned, confirmation. Second one, confirmation. Confirmation. Okay, so there you mentioned most of the organisms do not have the ability, most of the organisms do not have the ability to regulate their body conditions, to regulate their body conditions. Therefore, their body conditions will fluctuate. Their body conditions will fluctuate and conform. Body conditions will fluctuate and conform to the environmental conditions. Environmental conditions. Okay, keep a full stop and mention this response is known as confirmation. 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 Okay, so examples. Example, you mentioned example. Example, all the ectotherms are cold-blooded animals. All the ectotherms are cold-blooded animals, like fishes, amphibians, reptiles, etc. Okay, so they are examples. So for regulation, you remember examples like birds and mammals. So you have to remember from science and tech portion. So that is one thing. Then third one you mentioned, migration. Third one, migration. Some animals or some organisms travel to far off places. Far off places in search of favorable environmental conditions. In search of favorable environmental conditions. Okay, keep a full stop and mention this process of movement of organisms. This process of movement of organism from one place to another place. From one place to another place refers to migration. Refers to migration. Okay, for example, birds from Siberia birds from Siberia migrate to southern countries, migrate to southern countries during winter, migrate to southern countries during winter to avoid cold weather, to avoid cold weather, to avoid cold weather. Okay, so that is migration. Then next one, you mentioned suspension. 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 Okay, under that you mentioned some organisms have different mechanisms to escape the harsh environments, by entering into either dormant phase or temporarily suspending their metabolic activities. Okay, so that is one thing. For example, some bacteria produce spores which are able to withstand extreme conditions. Okay, bacterial spores. So that is one example. So they can withstand either in hot temperatures or in cold temperatures. So they will enter into a state of temporary dormancy. There they will suspend that metabolic activities. So that is suspension process. So last one you mentioned diapause. Diapause. Okay, so there under that you mentioned it is the natural interruption or cause of delay in the development of certain animals. It is the natural interruption or cause of delay in the development of certain animals, characterized by alterations in their metabolic activities. Okay, so that is diapause. So there we can see some things like hibernation and estivation. Some animals will enter into hibernation and estivation during different climates. So we'll see that later. Okay, so that is basic responses. Okay, then let's try to proceed with respect to specific responses. Okay, so first let's try to see responses to light. So response of the animals to the light. So what kind of response animals will show to the light? So based on the response to the light, we can classify animals into different types. So some animals would be active during the daytime, some animals would be active during the night time, and some animals would be active during the twilight time. So at the time of dawn and at the time of dusk. So based on the response or based on their activeness, So we can classify animals into different types. So based on that, we can just have generally 3 types of animals. So what are they? So one would be the nocturnal animals. Nocturnal animals or nocturnal organisms. You can mention simply organisms also. Nocturnal organisms or animals. Second one would be diurnal animals or diurnal organisms. And third category would be, there would be nocturnal, diurnal and crepuscular organisms. So one would be nocturnal, other would be diurnal and other would be crepuscular. Those organisms or those animals or those birds which will be active during daytime, they would be active during daytime. So they are nothing but those which are active during night time, they are nothing but nocturnal organisms. And those organisms which are active during daytime, so they are nothing but diurnal organisms. And those organisms which are active during twilight time. So what do you mean by twilight time? Yes? It is both during the sunset and sunrise time period, during the dawn and during the dusk, early in the morning and evening. So some organisms will be active. So such organisms are called as crepuscular organisms. Okay, so these are 3 different types of organisms which we can have based on the response to the light. So here it is important for us to understand the examples, which animals are called as nocturnal, which animals are called as diurnal, and which organisms are the crepuscular. Can you name any organisms or animals or birds which are active during night time? Owl, good. So owl and bats. Do you remember bats? So birds, bats are one thing, owl. Then what animals you can see during night time? So there are so many things like bats, owls, like we have leopards, hedgehogs, wolves, or like flying squirrel. So all of these are active during the night time. Okay, so even bears also active during night time. Leopards also active during night time. So leopards, bears, hedgehogs are like bats, owls, or we have examples like flying squirrels, lories. So all of them are active during night time. So you have to remember some of the examples for sure. Okay, so there is no other go. So you think in some of the videos you might be watching, so you try to remember likewise. Okay, so pictorially you have to remember some examples. So then what about diurnal organisms? Can you give some organisms which are diurnal in nature? Animals or birds which are diurnal, that means which are active during the daytime. You can see many examples. Daytime means it's obvious. Yes, human beings is one thing. Then what other animals? Won't you see any animals in daytime? Yes, dogs, cows. Then yes, some birds. Some birds are active during daytime, during like hens or sparrows. You can see sparrows, parrots, all these things. And can you name any wild animals which are active during daytime? It is important for us. Yes, very good. So tigers, lions, and what about others like deers? Deers, very good. Elephants. Yes. So giraffe. So all of them are active during daytime. So those animals which are organisms which are active during daytime are nothing but the diurnal organisms. Okay, diurnal animals. And then some organisms would be active during twilight time. So can you name any examples of twilight time? Twilight, those are active during sunrise and sunset. No, not dogs. Dogs are active during daytime. Yes. Mosquitoes. Yes, mosquito is one thing which will be active in the either in the morning and evening. So that is twilight time. You can see mostly in the evening time, mostly mosquitoes will they'll be active. Okay, think about rabbits. Rabbits will be active during morning and in the night. And jaguars. Jaguars will be active during either in the morning or evening. And think like red pandas. Red pandas also are crepuscular. They'll be active during twilight period. And like we have some of the snakes and lizards in the desert areas. Some snakes and lizards in the desert areas, they also will be active during the twilight time. That is both in the sunrise and sunset periods. So likewise, we have some examples like marsupials, kangaroos. Kangaroos also will be mostly active during twilight times. Twilight in the sense during the sunrise and during the sunset time period. Okay, likewise. So that is one response of animals to the organisms to the light. Okay, so there you mentioned heading stating response of animals to the light. Okay, response of animals to the light. Okay, so there first you may mention a heading stating diurnal animals. Diurnal, diurnal, D-I-U-R-A-R-N-L-A-N-A-L, diurnal, diurnal organisms. So under that you mention those animals that are active during the daytime, are called as diurnal animals. Are called as diurnal animals. Okay. For example, human. There will be some exceptions. Those who will read more in the night time, so they are exceptions. So they are nocturnal. But generally humans. Okay, humans. Then you mention deers, cows, dogs, cheetahs, elephants, honeybees, butterflies, okay, so etc. Okay, so there are some diurnal. Then second one you mentioned nocturnal organisms. Okay, under that you mentioned those animals which are active, during the night time are called as nocturnal animals. Okay, for examples, bats, owls, comma, bears, comma, leopards, flying squirrel, hedgehog. So for example, if you are unaware of anything, so just refer the images so that you can catch them. Okay, hedgehog, H-E-D-G, hedgehog, okay, comma, loris, etc. Okay, loris, etc. Okay, so that is one thing. Then next one you mentioned crepuscular organisms or crepuscular animals. Crepuscular. Okay, crepuscular animals. So under that you mention the those animals that are active during twilight, period. Okay, in bracket you mention during sunrise and sunset. During sunrise and sunset. During sunrise and sunset. Okay, there you mention example. For example, example, Amazon river dolphin, Amazon river dolphin, comma, rabbits, jaguars, okay, comma, red pandas, squirrels, comma, marsupials, okay, comma, some snakes and lizards, in the desert area, Okay, so these are different types of organisms, or those will be active due to in response to light. Okay, so remember nocturnal, diurnal, and crepuscular. So that is with respect to response to light. Okay, then response to temperature. What would be the response of the organisms to temperature? So that is one thing. So based on this, we can also have different responses. So response to temperature. So what kind of animals we can see based on the temperature? We can see temperature. So here we can see different types of responses. One such response is known as hibernation. And next one is, it is estivation, and next response would be migration. Okay, temporarily they will show some sort of response to the temperature. So there, one response is nothing but hibernation, other is estivation, and next one is migration. So what do you mean by hibernation? Hibernation generally refers to a state of winter sleep. It's a kind of winter sleep. So what will happen with respect to some animals? So some animals will try to temporarily suspend or temporarily reduce or temporarily stop their metabolic activities, okay, during the winter time. So that process of temporary suspension of their metabolic activities during the winter time, so that refers to hibernation. Okay, and in similar way, in order to just conserve their water levels, or in order to conserve the energy in the summer, some organisms will enter into temporary suspension of their metabolic activities. So estivation is nothing but it's a kind of summer sleep. It's a kind of summer sleep where organisms will temporarily suspend their metabolic activities, and organisms will go for a pause in their metabolic activities. So such response is known as estivation. Okay, and then we already know that some organisms will move from one place to other place. So that response is known as migration. Here we have some of the organisms, like let's say the fishes or bears or rodents like rats. So all of them, they will go to a kind of state of inactivity during winter time period. So bears will go for hibernation, or fishes will go for hibernation, or rats or rodents will go for hibernation, or like some others like turtles also will go for hibernation. So there are some examples for the organisms which will go for hibernation. So when they go for hibernation, that means they'll be in a state of inactiveness in the winter. So they won't go out and they won't carry on other activities. So simply, in order to just fetch the energy, they will consume more food at once and they'll be in a inactive state. And during this period, they will store their energy in the form of fat. So whatever the energy that is stored in the form of fat will serve as the source of energy for these animals. Okay, so that is one thing. So remember, hibernation refers to winter sleep. So they will go to a state of inactivity in the winter. That is one. So then in estivation, what will happen regularly? Think about some of the deserts. In deserts, what will happen? There would be very high and very huge temperatures. So during that time, obviously, some animals which are living in the desertic conditions, are like even in the tropical areas, they may have to lose loss of water. So they may prone to dehydration. So in order not to get into such kind of issues, usually they will go into a state of inactivity and they will hide in some places and they will just conserve their water levels and energy levels in the body. So such kind of maintaining or entering into a state of inactivity during summertime, so that is known as estivation. So that in simple manner or synonymously can be called as summer sleep. Okay, so when we talk about some of the examples, so you think about earthworms. Earthworms will have this kind of behavior, and then frogs also will enter into a kind of estivation during summer, and snails also will have estivation, the estivation thing. And then we have tortoise, crocodiles. So all of these animals will enter into estivation during summer times. So such kind of state of inactivity is known as the estivation. Okay, so that is one thing. Then we have migration. So think about Siberian crane. So do you know what would be the length of travel of Siberian crane? What is the length of migration of Siberian crane? Can you guess roughly? 7,000. Okay, it's around 5,500 kilometers. It's around 5,500 kilometers. It travels although from Siberia. So Siberia to the southern countries like India. So it reaches to Kevladev Gana National Park. So where is Kevladev Gana National Park? Yes, it is located in Rajasthan. So Bharatpur Bird Sanctuary. So earlier it used to be called as Bharatpur Bird Sanctuary. So Kevladev National Park. So it migrates to this. So there is a specific route also for that. So usually this Siberian crane, it will have a specific route. So from Russia, it moves to Uzbekistan. From Uzbekistan, it moves to Kazakhstan. From Kazakhstan, it moves to Turkmenistan. And from Turkmenistan, it moves to Afghanistan. From there to Pakistan, and then from there to India. So it follows that path also. So that's the migratory route that is followed by the Siberian crane during the winters in order to avoid the extreme situations. So that is one thing. So the entire length of this travel would be around 5,500 kilometers, more than that only, and it follows this path and it regularly travels in this path. So that's how. So that is one thing. And then we also have other examples like a greater flamingo. Greater flamingo is another example for this. So greater flamingo also migrates to the southern places. Like usually it will also be there in the Central Asian region, and from there it moves to the Caspian Sea region. So you have to recollect the geographical maps. So it moves to the Caspian Sea, and the Caspian Sea, over the Caspian Sea, it moves to the other southern places. So that's how greater flamingo also takes into migration. And apart from that, we have the European spack harrow. European sparrowhawk. European sparrowhawk. So European sparrowhawk, Eurasian sparrowhawk, it also goes for long route migration. So this is one example. So where during the winters it migrates all the way from Eurasia to the southern parts like India. So India, Myanmar, it migrates during winters. So that is one another example for the migration. Okay, likewise there are responses of organisms to temperature. Okay, so that is one thing. So there you mentioned responses of animals to temperature. Responses of animals or organisms to temperature. Okay, so under that first you mentioned hibernation. Under that first one you mentioned hibernation. Okay, so under that first point you write hibernation. Hibernation is also known as winter sleep, which refers to a state of inactivity, or low metabolic process. State of inactivity or low metabolic process. Animals perform during winter. Okay, so in next point you mention it is a condition in which animals go dormant. It is a condition in which animals go dormant during winter by lowering their metabolic activities. Okay, so can you name any metabolic activities of organisms, living organisms? Any metabolic activity? Yes. So pulse, yes, pulse rate is one metabolic activity. So general metabolic activities. Yes. Yes, respiration, digestion, good, respiration, digestion. So all these things are nothing but metabolic activities. So what will happen in the winter sleep or in hibernation? They will try to reduce or they will lower all these metabolic rates or lower their metabolic activities. Digestion, the activity of digestion will be reduced. The rate of respiration would be reduced. The rate of the heartbeat or rate of pulse rate will be reduced. They will control them and they will lower them, and thus they will require less energy and thus they can conserve the energy. Okay, so but what may happen, they'll be in a state of inactiveness, so they have to have the energy for during this period. So how they maintain the energy? So that is one another important aspect. So in next point you mentioned to combat the problem of food shortage. To combat the problem of food shortage, during hibernation, these animals eat a lot of food at once, and store them in the form of excess fat, Okay, so keep a full stop and mention the excess fat stored in the body, the excess fat stored in the body will act as source of energy, will act as source of energy during hibernation, during hibernation, during hibernation. Okay, so that is one thing. Then you mentioned examples. Fishes, bats, bears, rodents, rodents means yes, rats, mouse, mice. So they are rodents. So small rodents means rats, such things. Okay, rodents, comma, turtles, etc. Okay, so that is one thing. Then next one you mention about estivation. Next one is estivation. Okay, so there you mention under that first point, estivation is also known as summer sleep. Estivation is also known as summer sleep. Is also known as summer sleep, which refers to a state of inactivity, or low metabolic process of animals, during summers. Okay, so that is one thing. There you mentioned next point stating that estivation is generally done to protect themselves. Estivation is generally done to protect themselves from hot and dry climate, and due to scarcity of food and water, Okay, so keep a full stop and write in the same point. The sole motive of estivation, is to prevent water loss or dehydration, and to save the energy, Okay, so that is one thing. So where can we see such kind of dry and harsh environments? Yes, good. So it is in deserts. So usually animals which are living in desert areas as well as tropical areas, where we can see more temperature, more such kind of harsh environments, there this process will occur. So there, next point to mention, estivation occurs in the animals living in deserts and tropical regions. Okay, so that is one point. So then you mention examples. You mentioned like earthworms, earthworms, frogs, earthworms, frogs, snails, snails, salamanders, salamanders, they would be like big lizards. Salamanders will be salamanders, comma, tortoises, tortoise, crocodiles, tortoise, crocodiles, comma, mollusks, mollusks, arthropods, mollusks, arthropods, okay, etc., etc. Okay, so that is one example. That these are nothing but examples for estimation. Okay, then you mentioned about migration, the next process. Yes. Yes, turtle is different from tortoise. Yes. Okay, refer it. Okay, so it is basically we have to cover it in biology. We'll cover it in biology section. Okay, so refer what is turtle and what is basic difference between turtle and tortoise. Like simply to say like lion and cheetah or lion and tiger. So like cheetah or jaguar. So simply some little changes we can see likewise. So turtle and tortoise. So they are different. So then next one you mentioned migration. Migration. So there you mentioned migration occurs amongst the animals. Migration occurs among the animals in order to avoid extreme environmental conditions. Extreme environmental conditions. Okay, keep a full stop and mention in the same point. In order to avoid extreme environmental conditions, animals or birds will move from unfavorable environments to favorable environments. Okay, so there you mentioned for example Siberian cranes and greater flamingos. Siberian cranes and greater flamingos will migrate from Eurasia to the southern countries during the winter. Okay, so that is one thing. Then next example you mentioned Asiatic and Eurasian sparrowhawks. Asiatic and Eurasian sparrowhawks migrates to India and Myanmar during winters. Okay, so that is one thing. Then next example you mentioned like Humpback whales. Humpback whales. Humpback whales migrates to the polar areas in the summers. Humpback whales migrates to the polar areas in the summers, and while in winter they travels back to warm water. They will travel back to warm water. Okay, so that is one another example. So humpback whales, Asiatic hawk, a sparrow hawk, or greater flamingos, or Siberian cranes. They are some examples for the migration migration to longer places. So that is with respect to some of the specific responses of animals to temperature and light. Okay, so that is one thing. So this is with respect to responses. So in the environment, organisms will have different responses. So that is one thing. So there we have covered basic aspects related to the environment, and then let's move on to very basic aspects related to the ecology. Okay, what is ecology? We have studied ecology. What is ecology in yesterday's class? So ecology is nothing but yes, yes, it is nothing but systematic and scientific study of the relationship that are there in between the organisms and with their environment. Okay, so who introduced the word ecology for the first time? Good, it is Ernst Haeckel. So Ernst Haeckel was a German biologist. He introduced this word in 1869. This we saw in yesterday's class. So then, who made first authentic use of the word ecology, or who popularized it? Yes, it is Reiter. So it's Reiter. So Reiter has done it. So then, who explained that ecology is the study of plants and animals in response to in relation to their habitat? It is Charles Elton. Charles Elton was one modern ecologist. He explained that. So likewise. So then, who is considered generally as the father of Indian ecology? Father of Indian ecology. This we haven't discussed. So, who is considered? So, who studied the 12th standard book? Yes? No. He is the Birdman of India. Yes, it is. There is a scholar called Ramdev Mishra. There is a scholar called Ramdev Mishra. Ramdev Mishra. So Ramdev Mishra is considered as father of ecology in India. Okay, from India's perspective, we are saying. Okay, so in India, we call him as father of modern ecology. So that is Ramdev Mishra. So regarding Ramdev Mishra, you can see one column in the CBSE NCERT book itself. Okay, so refer about Ramdev Mishra. So Ramdev Mishra, so that is one thing. So these were very basics about ecology. So then in ecology, we have to learn about one aspect called ecological hierarchy, or levels of organization, or levels of living life sciences. So there is a concept called ecological hierarchy. So what do you mean by ecological hierarchy? So what do you understand by the term ecological hierarchy? Yes, simply hierarchy is nothing but arrangement of anything. If we arrange anything in layers, that process is nothing but hierarchical arrangement, we will say. So here ecological arrangement is hierarchy is nothing but arrangement of various things in ecology. It's nothing but ecological hierarchy. So there we can see different stages of arrangement of components of the ecology. So if you just basically talk from the very basic level, so in biology we have basic hierarchy, starting from, if we talk from, like, let's say genes. Like if we talk from genes, so genes, a group of genes. Genes will lead to formation of cells. So from cells we will get different group of cells is nothing but tissues, and then group of tissues refers to organs. Good. So that refers to organs. So then a group of organs that refers to organism. Okay, group of organs, it refers to organism. And then, so when we talk about other levels, group of organisms, or we can also call it as individual. Group of organisms or group of individuals, that generally refers to, yes, it is good, speak louder, no problem. So population, it refers to population. And in ecology, group of populations or assemblage of populations, that refers to, yes, it is community, or in simple way we can also call as biotic community. That is nothing but assemblage of various populations. We'll try to know about definitions and all those things. So I'm introducing the ecological hierarchy or levels of life sciences. So there, so biotic community. So then when this biotic community is integrated with the physical environment, surrounding physical environment, so then we will get another level of ecology, that is ecosystem. So ecosystem, and here ecosystem is very important, and ecosystem is the structural and functional unit of the biosphere. In geography you will study about biosphere. There would be various layers on the earth, so where we will have lithosphere, atmosphere, hydrosphere, and the area coinciding between all this, it is nothing but biosphere. So for example, if it is atmosphere, if it is hydrosphere, if it is lithosphere, and at the interjunction of this there would be biosphere where life would be there. So biosphere would be the ultimate unit of study of ecology. But if we talk from this biosphere, here ecosystem would be the most structural and functional unit of the biosphere. Here whatever we are going to study in ecology, that ecology is nothing but systematic study of the relationship between animals amongst themselves and with their environment. So these relations will occur in this unit only, so that is in ecosystem. So ecosystem is the place where the interactions will happen. So from that point of view, ecosystem is one thing. So that is one. So then the next unit is biome. Next unit is biome. So biome regularly refers to a large regional area which is characterized by specific vegetation pattern. Vegetation means like forests. So vegetation pattern, like whether it is a rainforest or deciduous forest or desert. So specific vegetation coupled with specific climatic factors as well as specific flora and fauna. So specific animals would be there, specific climatic conditions would be there, and specific vegetation would be there. Such kind of regional unit is known as biome. Okay, so that is one thing. So then the next level we will have biosphere. So these are various levels of organization or ecological hierarchy. So in ecology, in the realm of ecology, we will try to study about all these aspects. We have to study about all these aspects. And in the realm of biology, we will study about all these aspects. We'll study about all these aspects in biology. So this is with respect to the levels of life sciences, starting from very basic to the very high. So that is one thing. So these units will be studying in biology, these units we have to study in ecology. Okay, so this is in simple manner we can say the ecological hierarchy. So there we have to understand each and every component. Okay, so let's try to understand that. So before to that, you just make this, draw this one. Draw this one, starting from, keep heading stating ecological hierarchy, ecological hierarchy, ecological hierarchy, or levels of organization, levels of organization in life sciences, levels of organization in life sciences. Okay, so there you make this diagram. Just after biomes, biosphere, biosphere. Population itself, it is different. We'll talk about population. Okay. Yes, we'll explain. We'll come to. Okay, we have to explain each and everything. We'll write about everything. We'll discuss about ecosystem, biome, BIO. Ecosystem, biome, and biosphere. Okay, it is done. Is it done? So, shall I clear? So, first we have to discuss starting from the organism or individual. Okay, so that is the basic unit that we have to study in ecology. So, when we talk about organism, so basically organism, when we talk about organism, so can you see that in ecology, in ecological hierarchy, so we have written something called the organism at the first instance. So when we talk about organism or individual, it is the basic unit of ecological hierarchy. It is the basic unit of study. So when we study about entire aspect, we will study about the organism at the first instance. So organism is the basic unit of ecological hierarchy. So then what is organism? So organism is nothing but any entity. It can be any entity which will have some physiology plus morphology. Physiology plus morphology. Okay, so what do you mean by morphology? Morphology means which will have some structure and which will have some form. So that is nothing but structure and form. And any entity which will have the physiology. Physiology means metabolic, concern with metabolic processes. So any entity which has physiology and morphology coupled with the responses to the environment, that entity refers to organism. Okay, so simply you think about living organisms, like for example, if we talk about a rock has morphology, rock has a structure and rock has a form. And does it has any metabolic processes? No, it doesn't have any physiological process. And does it have any response to the environmental conditions? No. But think about a plant. Plant, does it have a proper morphology, shape and structure? And will it respond to the environmental conditions? Like for example, when water level drops, it droops. When water level is adequate, then it flourishes likewise. So there would be response. And what about physiology? It will have respiration, it will have the all other digestion, so all other process would be there. So that is one thing. So that is one example. Plant is one example of organism. Animal is one example of organism. Microorganism is one example of organism. So you can have all such things like examples. What are the examples you can take? Plant would be one animal. Sorry, plant would be one organism. Or animal would be one organism. Or microorganisms. Take anything like bacteria, fungus. So all of them are examples for the individual or organism. Okay, so it is the basic unit of ecological hierarchy that we will study. Okay, so that is organism. Okay, so there you mention, keep a heading mentioning first one as organism or individual. Organism or individual. Which one? Virus? No, because as we have said, virus is not a living organism. Virus is a mere living particle. We can call it as particle. Because it is not active and it is unable to replicate itself outside a living host. When a virus, when it stays inside a living host, then only it can replicate.
Virus also has morphology. It also has physiology.
But when we talk from the perspective of biological aspects, virus is not an organism. An organism shall have to have basic organs. Are you able to understand that? Our organism is nothing but, biological point of view, organism is nothing but group of organs. In bacteria, we can have cell. In bacterial cell, we can have different organs. We can see different organs. Whereas in virus, it is not the case. Virus is mere infectious particle. There is a firm difference. So you have to cover this from general science. So virus, fungus is not a living organism because it lacks the organs and it does not have such kind of mechanism. Okay, so you just try to learn that basic difference. Okay, where there is difference. So then, okay, you have written the heading. So then you mentioned that it is the basic unit of ecological hierarchy. It is the basic unit of ecological hierarchy. Okay, keep a full stop and mention. Next point, organism is any entity. Organism is any entity that has a specific morphology, in bracket you mention for your understanding structure and form. In bracket you mention structure and form. Morphology, comma, physiology. In bracket you mention metabolic processes. Okay, so metabolic processes, close the bracket, comma, responses to environment. So environment can be anything. The surroundings of an organism is nothing but environment. So whatever it is, it can be abiotic factors or biotic factors. So for all those things, response, that should be there. So that is one thing. Then you mention examples. Example, plants, animals, microorganisms, etc. Okay, so that is one thing. Here we are talking about organism. Organism here in the sense one organism we are talking. It can be plant, it can be animal, it can be microorganism like bacteria, fungi, one organism. So at this level of ecological hierarchy, an organism, as we are talking it as a single or solo unit, so it won't interbreed, or they won't interbreed, or they do not breed with the individuals from other groups. Okay, so that is one another thing that you have to keep in mind. Okay, individuals will interbreed with the same individuals. So that thing you have to keep in mind. So then next one we have to discuss is the population. The next level of ecological hierarchy is population. So there, what do you mean by population? Means population is generally nothing but group of individuals or group of organisms that are inhabiting in a particular area over a given time period. Okay, so that basically refers to population. So here what you have to remember, it is in simple way nothing but group of individuals. So how they would be there? A group of individuals who are residing in a particular region or inhabiting in a particular region over a particular time. Like for example, think about the tiger population living in India. Tiger population living in India during 2023 to 2020, 2022 to 2023. So here we are talking about tiger population, and where we are talking about tiger population of India, and during which period, 2022 to 2023. So that can be one thing. That means group of tigers living in India during 2022 to 2023. So this would be definition of tiger population. Then we can say like deer population, we can say elephant population, we can say human population per se. As we are reading in geographical, the ecological realm, we are taking animals as examples. Okay, when it comes to human population, that would be different. Okay, likewise, for example, Indian human population, the group of humans that are living in India during this period, that refers to human population. So frog population, tiger population, deer population, elephant population, tiger population, so all are nothing but examples for population. So population is generally nothing but group of individuals. You remember, that is one thing. Okay, so here what will happen at this level, so we can have the concept of species. We can have the concept of species. So what is species? So the group of individuals belonging to same species. That one another important aspect that we have to include. Group of individuals belonging to same species. So that constitutes the population. Here, what is species again? Species is nothing but again a group of organisms or group of animals which can interbreed amongst themselves, and can produce an active offspring, reproductively active offspring. So such kind of group of organisms is nothing but species. So such a group of individuals belonging to a particular species refers to population. Okay, so that is one thing. So there you have to remember this one. Okay, so there you mentioned population. Okay, so under that you mentioned, see, these definitions are also very, very important. So do not take them light. They are also important. Sometimes in exam directly they can be picked and asked. Like we feel that definitions are very simple. Like habitat or niche. So these kind of niche or such kind of terms are there. So they have been directly picked and asked by UPSC. And things like ecosystem. So question like they will give one phrase and they will ask it refers to what. So simply they will give 4 options. So such kind of questions also been asked. So there is every possibility they may jump to the basics and they may jump to these levels and ask the questions. Okay. So there you mention population refers to group of organisms or individuals, group of organisms or individuals belonging to a species, belonging to a particular species, inhabiting in a given area, at a particular time, Okay, so there, keep a full stop and write, for example, like mention Indian tiger population, simply to say tiger population, you can mention tiger population, elephant population, rhinoceros population. You can mention anything like frog population, etc. Frog population. Okay, so etc. So they are examples. So then next point you mentioned that species. What is species? Species is defined as group of organisms. Species is defined as group of organisms which can interbreed and produce a successful offspring. A successful offspring. Okay, so keep a full stop and write in the same point. These organisms may be separated in space and time into smaller groups called populations. These organisms may be separated in space and time into smaller groups called populations. Okay, so what is this point? So simply think about tiger population. Tigers are living in India. Tigers are living in other places also. So in Africa, so in the Southeast Asia, so tigers are there. So tiger species have been segregated into different smaller units called populations. Let's say Indian tiger population, African tiger population, like let's say Indonesia's tiger population. Likewise, so population is a smaller unit in which the species would be divided into smaller units. That smaller units is known as population. Okay, so here species have the ability to interbreed amongst themselves and they have to produce successful offsprings. So that is one important aspect. So there you have to remember. So that is one thing. Then what do you mean by the biotic community, or what do you mean by the biological community? So there we have said there would be an organism, and group of organisms refers to population, and group are such an assemblage of populations belonging to different species. That refers to biotic community. Now you see, in ecological hierarchy, we are going step by step ahead. So first we had organisms, an individual, and group of individuals, population. And this population, there we can see same species, organisms belonging to same species, we had that. So then in the next level, in biotic community, what we are saying, it is nothing but assemblage of various populations belonging to different species at one place. Okay, so that is nothing but biotic community. So there we can see, like for example, pond, let's take for example, if you want to take pond is a community, pond community. In pond we can say the populations of different species. You can see fishes in pond, fish population you can see frog population, you can see other insect population, you can see other plant population. So assemblage of various populations of different species, that refers to biotic community. So biotic means living. So here we are talking about living organisms. So assemblage of that thing. So that is nothing but biotic community. Okay, so then you mentioned biotic community. Okay, there you mentioned a biological community. A biological community refers to biological community, or you can say biotic community also. Biological community refers to an assemblage of populations of different species, an assemblage of populations of different species occupying a common place, common place of living. Okay, so that is one thing. So you mentioned, for example, all the living organisms in a pond belongs to one biotic community, Okay, so here you can see simply, like for example, if you consider this as the pond, so then within this pond you can see the population of fishes, you can see the population of, let's say, the frogs, and you can see the population of any other things like insects, or you can see the population of grass belonging to different species. So likewise, so assemblage of the populations belonging to different species, not same species. So that is biotic community. Okay, then next one we have is the ecosystem. So what do you mean by ecosystem? So here you see, try to understand. Basically there is two important words called eco and system. So there again, eco, and we have another word called system. So basically to say, the word ecosystem has been derived or made up of two words called ecos and system. So ecos here refers to simply we can say environment, and system refers to a complex of coordinated units. So ecosystem is nothing but simply a complex of coordinated units which are there in a particular environment. So in simple manner, that is etymologically, but we are not concerned with etymological sense. But in ecological sense, what is ecosystem means? Ecosystem is the basic structural and functional unit of the biosphere. So at this level of ecology, or at this level of hierarchy only, we can see various interactions of the people. Sorry, we can see various interactions of the organisms. Okay, so they will interact among themselves and they will interact with their environment. So That's why we are calling it as basic structural and functional unit of biosphere. And the word ecosystem has been introduced by a scholar called A.G. Tansley. There is a scholar called A.G. Tansley. So A.G. Tansley is the scholar who has introduced the term ecosystem for the first time. Okay, so he was a British ecologist. He introduced it in the period of 1935. So that is one another important aspect that you have to remember. Okay, so here the interactions or relationship between the organisms amongst themselves as well as with their environment takes place. So that's why we will call it as the basic structural and functional unit of biosphere. Okay, so that is one thing. So here ecosystems can be of different types. So we can say forest is an ecosystem, or we can say the desert is an ecosystem, or we can say pond is an ecosystem, lake is an ecosystem. So based on the nature, we can have different types of ecosystems. So there, if it is based on land, then we will call it as terrestrial ecosystems. Or if it is water based, then we will call it as, yes, it is aquatic ecosystems. Or if it is like if it is neither fresh water nor the marine water, then we can call it as brackish water. So we can have like terrestrial ecosystems or aquatic ecosystems. Likewise, we can have different types. So in terrestrial also we can have different ecosystems. When we go to ecosystem, we will study about that. So here we are introducing the definition. That's it. Okay. So we have to discuss ecosystems in detail. Okay. So that is one thing. So there you mentioned ecosystem. Okay. Under that you mentioned ecosystem is the basic structural and functional unit of the biosphere. Basic structural and functional unit of the biosphere, where living organisms interact among themselves and also with the surrounding physical environment, Okay, so that is one thing. So now here you try to catch up the essence. So here, what do you mean by biotic community or biological community? It is, yes, assemblage of populations of different species. When populations of different species will assemble at one place, can we expect interactions between them? Like think about deer and tiger. When they are at one place, obviously they will interact. Their interactions would be like prey and predator. So one eats other, one feeds another. So likewise there would be interactions. And when this biotic community or this biological community, when it is integrated with the physical environment of that particular place, then together we can call that as ecosystem. Okay, so biotic community is made up of various populations belonging to different species, and there we can expect different interactions or relationship between those organisms. And when this biotic community, when it is integrated with the physical environment, so then that refers to ecosystem. Okay, so that is another way we can define ecosystem. So there you mentioned. Next point, when a biotic community is integrated with the physical environment, that refers to an ecosystem. Okay, now you look at the first point and the second point. Now you can understand the second point with reference to the first point. Okay, for that you need to know what is biotic community. So I hope you are catching the phrase. Okay, so that's ecosystem and ecology. Ecology is the scientific study of these relations. Ecology is the study, ecosystem is the unit. Are you getting? Yes. Study of that interactions is nothing but ecology. Ecology, the word ecology itself, it includes logos. Logos means study. So study of the ecosystem systematically is nothing but ecology. That's why we are saying ecosystem is the basic structural and function. So we will study the various aspects in ecology with reference to ecosystem. Okay, so it is the structure of the ecosystem is the basis for study of ecology. So that's why that is that thing. Okay, so there is fundamental difference. So that's what. So then next point you mentioned, the term ecosystem was coined by a British ecologist. The term ecosystem was coined by British ecologist A.G. Tansley. A.G. Tansley in 1935. A.G. Tansley in 1935. Okay. Keep a full stop and mention. Here, etymologically speaking, the word eco refers to environment. The word eco refers to environment, and system refers to a complex of coordinated units. Complex of coordinated units. Now you see this part. So we are saying ecosystem. So we have said the word eco refers to environment. Okay, so we have physical environment, and system refers to a complex of coordinated units. Now you look at the biotic community. So it is a perfect assemblage of different populations. Now can you understand the definition? So that is a complex of coordinated units. So here there will be in a biotic community, organisms will have a coordinated interactions. Coordinated interactions means there in the first example itself we saw, in last class we saw grass would be there, deer would be there, and tiger would be there. So if one population is very high, then obviously it will impact on the ecology, other aspects of the ecology likewise. So there would be a coordination, there would be a balance between these units. So one population is a unit. So there would be a coordinated balance or coordinated complex of coordinated units. So that is biotic community as well as physical environment. So this process, this is nothing but ecosystem. Okay, so that is one thing. Okay, so we will learn about ecosystems in next classes. Like we have look at the class number 5 or class number 6. So there we have to discuss about different ecosystems. So there we have to discuss about components of ecosystem, function, structure of ecosystem, function of ecosystem, types of ecosystem. So we have to discuss various aspects. Okay, so it is a long-term discussion. So we will go on that. So, but now you remember this is ecosystem. Okay, likewise. Okay, so that's with respect to ecosystem. And then what is the next level of ecological hierarchy? What is the next level of ecological hierarchy? It is biome. So biome, you remember this is another important aspect. If you happen to read from geography also, biome is very, very important concept. Okay, so biome. So biome is generally nothing but it is a large regional unit. You remember regional, we are saying regional unit. And this regional unit will have specific characters, which is characterized by possessing of specific vegetation. Specific vegetation would be there, specific flora or fauna. What do you mean by flora? Flora refers to plants. Fauna refers to animals. So flora and fauna. So specific plants and animals can be seen, and along with this specific climatic conditions would be there. Specific climatic conditions would be there. So that would be nothing but the biome. Think about desert biome. Desert is a biome. So there you can see specific vegetation plant, desertic plants would be there, and there you can see specific type of animals. Can you see like for example, can you see any animal, let's say any bird like parrots in desert? No. But can you see snakes in desert? Can you see lizards in desert? So rare animals like, let's say for example, camels in a desertic area. So that means an area. Yes? Scorpions, yes. Scorpion. So likewise we can see specific flora and fauna. So that would be associated with a biome. And climatic conditions, you think about the climatic conditions like rainfall, precipitation, rainfall, or temperature or light. So it would be associated, and characteristics would be particular. So such regional unit which is characterized by all these things is nothing but biome. So we have different biomes. For example, tropical rainforest, it's a biome, tropical rainforest biome, or deciduous forest, or savanna, or yes, tundra is a biome, or taiga is a biome. So we will come to know that when we go to classification of biomes. So there we have to discuss these things also in detail. So when you go there in 8-9 classes, you will have that ecological biomes, classification of ecological biomes, and various vegetation types. We'll discuss about that also there. But here you remember the definition, that's it. Okay, we are in introduction part. So that is biome. So there you write the definition, but definitions are very, very important. Please, again I am stressing. Okay, so there, biome, you remember that biome. Under that you mentioned a large regional unit, characterized by a large regional unit characterized by a major vegetation type, and associated fauna found in a specific climatic zone. Okay, so that refers to biome. Okay, so there. Next point to mention, for example, tropical rainforest biome, tropical rainforest biome, comma, desert biome, tundra biome, TUNDRA, tundra biome, comma, savanna. So what is savanna? Yes, it's a grassland. Which kind of grassland? Is it temperate or tropical? Savanna. Savannas of Africa. Tropical. Savannas are tropical. Okay, so savannas. So likewise, so these are some of the examples for biomes. Okay, likewise. Then you just remember next level is biosphere. So biosphere. So what do you mean by biosphere? So there we saw. So biosphere is nothing but the interjunction or the place where the lithosphere, hydrosphere, and the atmosphere that can overlap. So that region where life exists is nothing but biosphere. So it is the layer on the earth where we can see life on the earth. So that part is nothing but biosphere. Okay. So here when we talk about biosphere, in terms of ecological manner, how we can say means biosphere is nothing but sum total of all the ecosystems that are present on the earth. So we have said ecosystem is the basic structural and functional unit of biosphere. So biosphere, when we are saying that biosphere is majorly composed of various ecosystems, because it is the basic structure of the biosphere is made up of ecosystem. So can we call biosphere as an assemblage or sum total of all the ecosystems that are there on the earth? So in ecological terms, we can define biosphere likewise. In the geographical realm, we can define it is the place where life exists on the earth. So likewise, we can define. So in ecological sense, this is how. In geographical sense, we can define likewise. Okay. So in other ways, how we can just explain it means the biosphere, usually it consists of all the living organisms and non-living organisms, and their continuous interactions will take place here. So biosphere is the larger unit in the ecological hierarchy. So where all the interactions that are taking place on the entire earth will be present. Okay. So ecosystem is the basic unit. So biosphere is composed of various ecosystems. So all the interactions that takes place over the entire earth would be present in the biosphere. So that's how we can just define biosphere. Okay. So about to this, we will have one thing called ecosphere. We will have ecosphere. In ecological realm, how we can just define ecosphere means ecosphere is nothing but simply, so it is made up of all the units. Like one way we have atmosphere, one way we will have hydrosphere, another way we will have lithosphere, another way we will have biosphere. So ecosphere is nothing but the entire, all the aspects related to these things, like ecosphere, combinedly ecosphere, lithosphere, biosphere, atmosphere and hydrosphere together constitutes ecosphere. So this is one another further aspect. So that is various levels of ecological hierarchy. So there you mentioned biosphere. So there you mentioned a biosphere. A biosphere is the sum total. Biosphere is the sum total of all the ecosystems. Sum total of all the ecosystems established on the earth. Established on the earth. Okay, so then next point you mentioned, biosphere is that part of the that part of the lithosphere, hydrosphere and atmosphere. Lithosphere, hydrosphere and atmosphere, where plants and animals live, Therefore, biosphere contains all life forms on the earth. Okay, so that is one thing. So you can just mention one Venn diagram in the form of a Venn diagram stating one hydrosphere. You can mention one lithosphere, and you can mention one atmosphere. So you can mention atmosphere, lithosphere, hydrosphere and biosphere, and together all these components will make up one another entity called ecosphere. So in ecological realm we'll call it likewise ecosphere. So you can mention likewise. So where A refers to atmosphere, L refers to lithosphere, there you can have hydrosphere, and you will have biosphere. So these are the components of ecosphere. Okay, so that's with respect to levels of life sciences or levels of ecological hierarchy. Okay, so this is very basic concepts related to the ecology. So there we have to understand there are various principles of ecology. Okay, let's discuss in tomorrow. So there are various principles of ecology. So ecology will function based on some principles. So there are some principles like we have the evolution, we have the natural selection, we have variations, we have mutations, we have the adaptations. Okay, so we have to understand so all these principles of ecology. Okay, so there we have to focus more on adaptations and acclimatizations. So they are very, very important from ecological point of view. So okay, so let's try to cover that part for in tomorrow's class. Okay, so that is one important aspect. Yes.
Biosphere is the sum total of all the biosphere.
Yes, obviously we can define. So usually to say biosphere is made up of different biomes. Okay, so in ecological hierarchy when we say the biome, all the biomes we can call it as the biosphere. So usually biome is made up of ecosystem, so we have defined from ecosystem point of view. So likewise, okay, that way also we can define. So in other way also we can say like biosphere consists of two major biome systems, that is terrestrial biomes as well as aquatic biomes. We can have terrestrial biomes and we can have aquatic biomes. So entire biosphere is made up of both terrestrial as well as aquatic biomes. Okay, we will discuss that the classification in biomes part. Okay, so that's with reference to today. We'll meet tomorrow. Okay, thank you all.